Can we sit anywhere?
Try and sit behind your photo just in case.
Oh, right, okay.
Then people remember who you are. And it puts Andy furthest away from me, which is always good.
So Natalie and I were trying to work out how to not sit on the green seats.
It looks quite uncomfortable.
Thanks for that.
Right, never mind.
Right now.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, we're just going to try and move you forward. It's
Oh.
just, you're just about to fall off the back of the stage.
I'll get off.
Which, whilst it would be great entertainment to start the day.
Thanks.
Morning, everyone. Thanks for coming, or coming back if you were here yesterday. I get the privilege of starting today with 4 fantastic leaders who I won't spend the whole panel introducing to their CVs, but we have agency leaders here, we have tech platform here, and we have I think what can only be called as an industry veteran, so Andy Hart on the end. So Andy on the end, Shula, strategy officer for M6, the Group M agency in JV with CHI, Couchman, who most of you will probably know from his many successful jobs on the sales side, currently EMEA Snap, and Natalie Cummins, who is an ex-colleague of mine at the wonderful Zenith agency, and she's done a fantastic job there as CEO for the last 3 years. 4 years. Time flies when you're enjoying yourself, doesn't it? Just discussing budgets, which we did a session on budgets yesterday. I think anyone that's in budget process now, it's a bit like that, isn't it? But yeah. So we're not talking about budgets today. We're talking about leaders, as Andy said. Today, yesterday we had a very senior audience in. Today we've tried to encourage those leaders to bring their rising stars to today. So that I'm slightly disappointed that there are empty seats here, because we would like to see more rising stars. So for our next, if you've got people sat in the office that would enjoy content and would see this as a learning and development opportunity, then do make sure that you're nagging my events team to give you a discount code or a comp ticket for a star. So yeah, that's one of the things that we're trying to do at Mediatel, is actually make sure that we have both content for the senior leaders and also for rising stars. And that's what today's opening panel is going to be on, is how these people who have had glorious careers can advise people, and again, whether you're a leader yourself at the moment or someone that's on the way up, what lessons you can take back to your team, or indeed impart yourself to make your career as a media leader even better. So put the old glasses on and we'll start here. Right, I promised some soft questions, didn't I? Yeah, ignore the ones I sent you yesterday. Here are the real ones. We'll start with you, Natalie, as you chose the cheap seat next to me. What is it that you would advise, and what do you do? I mean, you've got a very strong team. You've built a team at Zenith where, again, a lot of people I knew when I was there many years ago who've come through, so there's been loyalty in that. So what is the advice that you're giving to those people to come and replace you in time?
Younger people, you mean?
Young people. In fact, Jan Gooding yesterday made a brilliant point about mid-manager again. So that middle management where you're trying to run clients, you're trying to run a team, but also you're trying to build your own career. Yeah. She was saying that's probably the toughest job, and also the ones that get squeezed and get made redundant and. So one of the things we did yesterday about the talent crisis, it's not just entry level is the problem.
I mean, I would say this is probably a bit hard line, but I would probably say the best way to move out of the middle management is to do loads of new business, because it's like the lifeblood of an agency, and if you're not good at pitching, you probably wouldn't easily go up, because you just need your leaders to be able to do a really good job.
And that's as old as the hills, isn't it?
Yeah, that will never change.
Agency side, you're a great account director, then you volunteer to work on a pitch, and that's still the case now, isn't it? That's still
it is.
Those putting their hands up to give up their weekends.
Well, I mean, we don't do any of that anymore these days. Haven't for ages. Like when we do a pitch, we hardly ever do the weekend, even the weekend before.
My favourite NABS ad was, if you don't come to work on Saturday, don't bother coming in on Sunday.
That is good. That's a good one. No, we really don't like we don't do late nights on pitches. We start early, and I mean I could get into a whole thing about that, but I won't. So I think being good at new business and wanting to be a part of it is important. And then I think the second most important thing is versatility. So you have some people at middle management, if we're going to talk about that, who are good on that sort of client, but you can never put them on that sort of client because they don't really want to work on that client because I don't think it's exciting enough for them, or they just don't want to work on that category, or they're a bit of a square peg, and you can only really put them on that kind of client. The best people, and you can still sort of get to the top, as it were, without being the best pitcher in the world, if you can be versatile. So people that you can put on any account and they can make it theirs and run it their own way, and make a success of it. So those people are brilliant, and you don't find them everywhere because a lot of people are only sort of suited to that kind of thing on that kind of thing. So,
you're about John Heather, aren't you? John has done the same job at Zenith for 45 years.
No, he's finally moved on.
Ed, what Natalie's described is a very traditional way of pleasing your boss in agency. What's the equivalent on the sales side? What are your rising stars volunteering to do or agreeing to do when you ask them nicely?
I think they all have a side hustle, which is fascinating for me. So we've recently taken a bunch of interns, so we had a sort of welcome introduction session to them into the business, and I was kind of really encouraged by that sort of entrepreneurship, that sort of side hustle that we all had. Some of the questions they asked me, which made me reflect in preparation, and a sort of similar question about, what shapes you, what guides you? And so I shared two things with them actually, which I'll sort of elaborate here a little. I think the first thing, acknowledging that to those interns that they're not going to retire at Snapchat, essentially. They're going to work for a number of businesses and organisations, and I encourage them to think about their own personal values, what is important to them. So my values would be around being fair, kind and honest. And that actually then helps you guide you.
Are they Ed values or are they Snap values?
They're my values. They do overlap with Snap. Snap values are being kind, smart and creative. I am smart, obviously. just in case maybe I should change it.
Can't fulfil that one, better move on.
And sometimes I think kind can get a bit confused about as just being nice, but kind isn't always being nice. It's about having a tough conversation. Andy and I were actually just talking backstage, and he was talking to me about how actually having a tough conversation is actually fairer as well. Actually, for full disclosure, Andy used to be my boss, actually. So I just want to get that out there in case you have any previous...
He used to be my assistant, so...
I think that's why I'm sitting here.
Yeah. So having some personal values, I think, which then help guide you and shape you with choosing where you want to work and how you might manage a team and lead a team. So that's the first one. And then I think the second piece of advice I gave the interns was to build your own personal network. I still believe that media is a people-based business. Absolutely. And building your network is really important to events like this, especially in real life. I think one of the byproducts of sort of remote working and hybrid working is that you don't always have the same human connections and building those relationships, particularly those sort of after work, pre-work sort of social. So I think that's really important. But then if I sort of reflect back, all those people I meet throughout my career, you can sort of go to them and sort of ask them for help, advice and support as you sort of go through your career as well. So have some personal values that ring true to you and build your network of people that you know for support.
Very good. Andy, Ed talked about side hustle. You're a man that likes the side hustle. But let's go back again. When you knew everything as a 21-year-old, yes. What did you realise that you didn't know? What's the stuff that you wish or you'd impart to young people now to do that you didn't do when you were on your glorious career?
I could speak on this for about 20 hours.
We've got 20 minutes between five of us, so I'll give you two.
Okay, give me two. So I think the first thing is that you need to learn your craft. Right, just really learn your craft, which is find a good teacher and understand what you do, understand the rules, and then learn to unlearn the rules. That actually the great leaders are going to be innovators, which mean that you look at the rules and go, actually this doesn't make sense. How can we improve on this? So how do I improve on myself? How do I help improve the people around me? How do I improve the processes in the company? And then as you start to look outward, as you get more senior, how can I improve the industry? And so I think understanding the rules and then learning how to break the rules would be something that would be really great. The second thing is the humility piece. Is however smart we are, and we're all very smart people. You wouldn't be in this room if you weren't a smart person. You only know 10% of what you think you know, and go and find the people who really know about this and make them your mentors. So I think the second thing that I would have really benefited from was finding really great mentors. And when I did and I got under their wings, my world changed.
Yeah. Okay. Shula, you've had a varied career, but yeah, creative agency, direct agency, media agency, and now you're from
portrait painter, military intelligence. It has really been varied.
But you've got a worldwide. So from a worldwide perspective, are there different advice that you're giving to people? I was chatting to Jack yesterday about so you've got a big Indian business, you've got a big growing US business. Yes. So do you see yourself giving different advice in people in different markets?
I think my one piece, which you could clearly conclude from my track record, is don't assume that progress is linear. And I think that when you are able to draw upon a wider field of experience across disciplines and contexts, sometimes that gives you the leverage in those pitch situations, for example, but also in terms of your network, where you open up a lot more opportunity in your future. So I think my advice, you talk about principles, my advice would be follow your curiosity and don't be bogged down by the next step up the ladder.
Right. Natalie, again, you talked about an old-fashioned trait of getting to the top.
I think it's timeless rather than old-fashioned.
Like it. I stand corrected. Timeless. Volunteering to work hard. Yeah, but what are there any new skills and attributes that someone of my generation wouldn't have had to do that you see? And again, I'm 3 years outside the agency world now. What are the skills and attributes that you think are new that will be vital for the future?
I think sort of simplicity of language and being conversational is quite important because, in the last sort of 15 or so years, there's obviously been massive media fragmentation, all these other channels that are available for use, and whole vernaculars that grow up around them. And, you often feel like, certainly at my level, but at any level, that you can't really keep up with all the new stuff that's out there. And I think whether you're sort of young or old, I think if you can talk in a conversational way about stuff and make it really simple and sort of leave behind all the marketing chat.
The TLAs.
What's TLAs?
3-letter abbreviations.
Yeah. Leave all that stuff behind and just talk conversationally. Like they're the people that get on best with our clients, and we find more success with clients, like in situ and winning new ones, when we talk conversationally about stuff that everyone else is using those TLAs around. Or
in the time press, so do clients have the time for conversation these again?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, like our so some of our clients are here today, and even the most senior ones have got loads of time to talk about media.
So if you're a 3-4-year-old media planner or media buyer, you're encouraging them to try and have those conversations, because I remember when people started negotiating on Messenger, I was horrified that they weren't sort of picking up the phone and negotiating.
Yeah, like we want our people to talk to our clients about all the stuff that's out there.
And you think I'd agree with you, face to face and
doesn't have to be face to face.
Voice conversation is best. But are you finding that it's not in that simplicity piece? There's just more ways of communicating than ever. So are you doing training to try and get that across to people?
It's just a bit of a way that we do things at Zenith, actually, which is just to be really conversational about stuff and talk about channels in a ordinary way and try and talk about them not in a way that everyone else does. So when we're talking to clients, for example, we always encourage it. We always get junior people into pitches because we just think it's quite important. And we always encourage them, don't use traditional media language, like, driving engagement, like talk about it in a conversational way, and we just land so much better, and everyone just thinks, oh, we're having a good conversation about this. It just works. I just think it's the best advice.
No, I agree. Shula, again, I presume you agree with most of that.
Absolutely.
But are there skills, again, that you see within your agencies? So the rising stars in your, you see something that's really interesting, because that didn't used to be a skill or a talent that we had 10, 15 years ago.
We're certainly spotting, I'm thinking more of our strategists, we're certainly observing that the ones that stretch more into brand conversations and commerce and come out of that sort of deep discipline are the ones that have more traction. Storytelling was ever thus, but to build on your simple language, which I couldn't agree with you more, but every agency is going to be talking about the same parameters in similar terms. So what is the flavour in your storytelling that you add that directly applies to what keeps your client up at night?
But that's not a new trait, is it? That's another timeless trait.
That's true, and maybe it's the means of storytelling that have changed.
Okay, Ed, from a sales, but again,
I think one of the key differences,
I'm
not sure if it's new, it might be obvious, but definitely a shift that I've noticed. I think throughout my career in the early stage with sales side, it was all about the trade and almost trying to get one over the media agency buyer and like, okay, we got that great rate, we got that position, we didn't do that, and almost this sort of gamesmanship. And I think that's completely shifted to a real focus on providing value. And I think one of the things about speaking to clients, if you can provide it, there's got to be a value exchange. What are they getting out of that conversation? So at Snapchat, we have some pretty big neighbours in Google and Facebook. We have a pretty big noisy neighbour in TikTok. So we have to think differently and be different. And one of the ways we think about doing that is by making sure we provide value in those conversations, those interactions. And if that can add the business value to that, to the bottom line, then all the better. It's about, I think, a value exchange.
I don't want to hog, but I think it is a new skill, because
the conversational piece.
Yeah, because when when everything started to fragment and digital sort of was born, that's when all the complicated language came in, and literally like the acronyms were changing, and it was, you think, oh, that's the new 3-letter acronym for that, right? Same thing.
Yeah. The Emperor's New Clothes, which Andy built over at MailOnline. Yeah.
But a lot of the young up-and-coming people at our place, quite often we're learning from them, as we're talking to them, and they're like, yeah, but it's really just, and they'll just say it in a normal way, and I'll think, oh yeah, shit, that is what it is. I'm going to say it like that. So us old people are learning from them, because they've come through those 15, 20 years, and they're like cutting through it. That's why a lot of the young people are so good.
Yeah, I'm digital natives, for want of a better catchphrase. I mean, you worked with them, you hired them.
Yep.
Yeah. Again, what were you drawn to when you were looking for those sort of people in your
It depends which phase. Obviously, in the early days when we switched from analog to digital, there weren't any digital people. There was no digital buyers, or there was no digital departments in agencies. We had to go and invent. Who do we sell to? We had to start the IAB. We had to try and create an industry. We started the Association of Online Publishers. We had to create digital people. In later years, we found that there's a lot of people that had just lived their lives through screens. And they actually hadn't had that visceral connection and understand that actually it's about human connection. And I think that as I look back now over the decades, which we can do, from the days when Greg and I, one of the greatest skills that you could have is being able to drink 12 pints of Guinness, because we used to go to the pub and do pub at lunchtime, and all the TV buyers would come in, and we'd do all our negotiations throughout the afternoon, to a world where you're going to be living with AI and ML. Right, which means that majority of the work that these digital natives are going to do are going to be done by machines. So how are you going to differentiate yourself? And the only differentiation is the human-to-human connection. Yeah. So for me, what I spend a lot of time when I'm coaching leaders now is about getting to your true, authentic self. And you see that with leaders. If I am truly authentic, I can be vulnerable, I can be humble, I can engage with you and have truly human conversations, and then we can go and explore this new, crazy, ever-changing world together. And when I see, the agency world where people are pitching all the time and people are being judged on data which may or may not be correct, the great advertising campaigns, the great media solutions come through relationships.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So-
and
That's true, yeah.
So again, I've got some common themes here, and again, I hate a panel that agrees with each other. Hopefully, I'll be honest. But simplicity, conversation, and create your own brand as well, which again I think is I'm hearing, and be yourself because everyone else is taken is one of my favourite quotes. Yeah. So they're today's traits. They should have been yesterday's traits as well. But we can argue they're more important. Yeah. If we look forward again, so and Shula, perhaps you can start on this. AI, VR. Are these are we talking about new craft skills that people are going to have to learn, or are there new behavioural skills that people are going to have to learn?
Blimey, I thought you were softballing me. Cheers for that. I think, much like the digital disciplines that you described way back then, I imagine we're going to have to shape and define those roles and then find the people who fit within it. But we're also going to need an industry that doesn't shy away from digging into these new technologies and disciplines in order to truly understand what's possible, as opposed to doing a slightly better version of something they've seen from a competitor, which is a common theme. So that is a very big question you're asking there. I think it is a combination of the right skill set, but embracing a new
Martin Sorrell years ago said, teach kids Mandarin. Which again, there's a very simple message.
Yes.
Yeah, which and it's a skill. Learning a new language is a skill. Yeah, so is there something as we've talked about simplicity being important. Is there something simple, that one bit of advice that you'd give someone in the room today or out in the
So maybe the piece of advice is don't expect people to show up with the skills that you need. And maybe the onus is on agencies to educate and train their future workforce. So, for example, at the AND Partnership, we've established an academy in Birmingham. It launched a few weeks ago amongst underrepresented groups, but we are essentially giving a very intensive digital skills education to ensure that they are able to work anywhere in the industry. So maybe it's that. Maybe it's we need to take responsibility for the future skills of our workforce.
Ed, is there something on a CV? Is there a skill or a talent on a CV that you look at and go, I need more of that?
I think there are certainly some shortages in tech, of course there are, particularly in engineering, particularly in augmented reality. And then if I just use that as a specific illustration, so augmented reality is layering on the digital to the physical world. That might be sort of fun dog ears or vomiting rainbows in the case of Snapchat, but it can also be a sort of utility. Essentially, one illustration of that might be around layering on geographical directions to get you from A to B. But actually, there are some existing skills that can come over to that, and that would be the simple illustration would be sort of 3D artists or 3D illustrators, who then, so you're really looking to hire for potential and creativity, and then to teach them the craft of AR because they're pretty similar actually. And so it's around, I think, hiring for potential and that intellectual curiosity and the ability to change and learn, rather than a very specific skill set for the here and now.
Yeah.
So we're agreeing again.
Oh,
yeah.
Damn it! Sorry, I was trying not to.
I'll give you an example. Yeah, I always used to look for someone that had been captain of a netball team or a hockey team. Or that was on a CV amongst the another first from Oxford, another PhD. It's like if you can get 11 students out of bed on a Saturday morning to go and play sport, you're going to do well. Is there something like that again, which that obviously AR, VR, is there a softer skill that you'd encourage people to still look at?
So I think the challenge on the sports analogy is that that's great for extroverts. Actually, can we hire for introverts as well?
Yes.
And actually people display those or articulate those skills and experiences differently and try and create teams that are different, and all those different approaches and skills and behaviours I think is really crucial.
And how do you spot those? Because so at Mediatel, our reception is full of chess players, jigsaw doers, and quiz players. I mean, all the devs sit there at lunch. I mean, it's the quietest reception you've ever walked into because, as you say, the devs tend to be introverted. apart from within their dress sense. But yeah,
I think one of the things to do well is how we look to hire talents and making sure that you don't just do a linear interview of just one person or two people, but you have an interview panel, and that interview panel is reflective of your company. So have different teams, different businesses involved in that, and that people look different as well.
Have you copied that tech recruitment process at Publicis at all? That where you have like a panel of people from different departments interview. I know Facebook famously did that, didn't they? Where the engineer would have a right of veto on a salesperson.
Yeah.
We don't follow that specifically, but we look to recruit people from all different, at the entry level, from all different places and all different skill sets. But anyone can sort of learn stuff. I'm quite a big believer in, just going back to the softer skills and the netball thing, whatever, in sort of neurodiversity and quite a big one on class diversity as well, which is the sort of...
Yeah, Simon Redkin's not been here the last couple of days, but he's normally, what about class?
Well, yeah, it's a bit overlooked, I think.
Totally, and no one can argue with it as well. So
But neurodiversity we're quite big on, and I'm quite big on it personally. I just think you need all sorts of different skills, and some people are classic account people, and you kind of need those people sometimes, but a lot of the people that at our place are a bit different. Some of them are a bit spiky, some of them are really quiet and come over a bit nervy, but they really know what they're talking about. And our best clients recognise that he might not say much, but when he does, it's very good.
Say one clever thing rather than 10 stupid things.
And so
every appraisal I ever had said that.
At entry level and every level, when we're going back to the middle management thing, we just look for people that can be versatile, but that doesn't mean being traditional or boring. So there's quite a lot of people at Zenith and at Publicis who are, really quite different, and not all of them are everyone's cup of tea, but they all bring something that's quite important. And I think neurodiversity is one of the most important aspects of diversity.
Totally. Right, we're swiftly running out of time. That has absolutely flown by. I've got a nice softball one for you to all end on. So we'll start with you, Andy, at Hart. What was unique about your path to glory or wherever you are? Is that your checkered career, should we call it?
Definitely checkerboard, at least. I did agency, I did publishing, I did new innovation, and then digital, small company, big company. But I also left the industry a couple of times. I was quite happy to go out. Maybe I was half burned out because a lot of the stuff I was doing was bleeding edge. And there's always a path back in because you come in as a different, diverse person. So I actually came back in a much more senior roles. So don't be scared to move, and don't be scared to go out, relearn, and think that you can't get back in. You can get back in. Obviously, on top of all of the media and publishing and digital innovation stuff, I did the things I did very differently. Is I went into the jungle and drank ayahuasca and did shamanic teachings and deep psychology stuff. Kind of unusual until you actually go and speak to.
How was Burning Man?
Burning Man this year was my 9th one. was amazing, but it was a pretty tough one. But it's transformational. Really is transformational.
Yeah. No, I remember having lunch with Andy when he. It's like, I think I'll get another job, and next week he was VP of Microsoft. We can't all that. So have the confidence of Andy Hart would be one of the things. Shula, what's been unique in your path?
So, military intelligence, portrait painting, waitressing, a few other gigs before falling into advertising, then creative agency, client gig, and media. So I would say, don't worry about going up, go wide.
I had a great phrase yesterday, Denise at Roots said yesterday, don't think of it as a career ladder, think of it as a career climbing frame, which I thought was a brilliant phrase. Ed, why are you unique?
Natalie's actually prompted a very old memory, so I'm going to share a quick story. And not too similar, I didn't start out in media. I actually started out in Morgan Stanley, the investment bank, and it was like 1997, so sort of Tony Blair's Things Are Going to Get Better, Britain, the height of lad culture. But I was a comprehensive schoolboy, grew up in Birmingham, went into basically investment banking turned up on day one with sort of brown shoes and a black suit, shirt tie combo from Next, looking around the sort of public school boy, and it was public school boy as well. They all looked and spoke very differently. Went out to my first lunch, I had a pint of Foster's, because that was pretty cool back then. They were all drinking sort of Sinclair. And that was, so clearly I didn't fit in, and no one made any attempt to help me fit in whatsoever, and I just didn't feel any sense of belonging whatsoever. It felt like a very different alien world. In fact, my boss caught me out on wearing the wrong shoes with my suit, and literally did ask me where I got my shirt from, and you know, it was Next and not whatever it is in Savile Row. But that, and then I left after about 6 weeks. But that experience of not fitting in and being different and not being welcomed really stuck with me. And that has made me think about how we do create teams, how we create that sense of belonging, essentially. So I fell into sort of media and advertising, but that first experience really stuck with me.
Great.
Well, it's probably not unique, but
Just building on that, I think it's quite nice to think about this the other way around, is that when you are looking or going for a new job, you are interviewing the boss and the company more than they're interviewing you. Because you will get sucked up into the process and your ego will get dragged in. You know, people don't leave companies because they don't like the companies. People leave companies because they don't like their boss. So interview your boss and make sure this is someone you respect and you can work with. Look at the LAX test that Google, that Sergey and Larry did, which is when you're interviewing people, of course, they're going to be smart. They tick all the boxes. They're not a complete psycho. You need a little bit of psycho. That's quite nice. But if I get stuck with you for 8 hours in an airport, am I still going to like you? And are we still going to be chatting after those 8 hours? If it's kind of yes, then you should work together.
Natalie, I'll give you the final word because we're out of time.
So I started off at Zenith actually years and years ago. Saw an old face today, Greg, who was there when I first started. And then I worked at a creative agency for a bit where I didn't get on that well. They sort of didn't like the conversational style. They kept telling me I needed to be more formal. And then I worked at a couple of other media agencies, and then I've been at Zenith since 2000, well, publicist since 2006. Quite a lot of my life has changed during that time. So I've had 3 children. I became a lone parent. I've done 5 days a week, 3 days a week, 4 days a week. So lots in life has changed. And the only advice I would give is, shit happens and bad things can happen to you, but your employer can often surprise you about how your employer adapts to your life changing, and they sort of just let you change the job to fit with your new life and your new circumstances. And I think sometimes when you have a life change, you get divorced, or you move to a new area, or you have a child or whatever, you can often assume, I should think about changing my job because it might not work with my new life. And actually, employers can really step up and be massively supportive when your life changes. So I guess my advice would be, if life changes, give your employer a chance to show you that they can move with you.
I think so. That's great advice. And again, for those that have got a boss, if you're a boss, be a good boss, and if you're an employee, look at your boss and try and make sure they understand what you want to do. Because I think the last 2.5 years taught us anything, we have to all be more flexible. As I say to some of my people, being flexible means, you sometimes come to work on a Friday. But
but I think just building...
We're out of time, sorry, Andy.
Just one thing. Build your support networks inside the company and outside the company, because things change.
Nice one. Please join me in thanking the panel. It's been very interesting.